Babe, what did you get to do today?
I got to record Amazing Grace in the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee.
How about that?
It was a dream come true.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. That grace appear the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. Than when we first begun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
It was truly such an honor to be able to record Amazing Grace in Nashville. And, you know, they had a list of songs that they had copyrights to that you were able to sing and choose from. And so I immediately looked for a hymn, and the only hymn there they had was Amazing Grace. And so you had to kind of use the soundtrack that they had. So even though maybe it had a little bit more beat in it than normally I would sing with, it was just a moment that I felt like God just reached down from heaven and gave me a little hug and just gave me that just really special opportunity to be able to sing in a studio, record a song in Nashville. So it was just a special moment, and I'm just thankful. As I was singing it, I was thinking about the words in that song, and I'm just so thankful for God's amazing grace in saving me. And so I hope that was a blessing for you, as it was for me. Okay, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the Ryman Auditorium where I sang Amazing Grace. So years ago, back in the 1800s, there was a man who was really developing Nashville. He was just building all kinds of buildings, a lot of industries, and doing the town back then, city, was booming. And there came this preacher who was preaching hellfire brimstone messages, and it made this guy who was developing Nashville really upset, because he thought, you know, my city is doing good. I don't need this, you know, strong, hot, fiery preacher over here preaching against all the bars and the saloons and all of those things. So he said, I'm going to go have a talk with him. And so he went to one of his services to tell him to stop preaching so hard. And he went to this church service, and guess what? He got saved. And it was such a transformation in his life that he decided to build a beautiful church building, and he built the Ryman Auditorium. And he filled that place. I mean, he had preachers come in, and it was a good church, and that place was filled to the brim with people who wanted to hear the gospel and who wanted to grow in the Lord. And when he died, when he passed away, they named it after him, Ryman Auditorium. And so that was just such a neat thing, because where sin is, there should be the Word of God teaching people how they can be redeemed from that sin. And yet, as Christians, we so many times dwell in that sin and try to justify it as right. It was just a really neat place. So for many years, it was used as a church house, wonderful church. But then when Ryman passed away, there was a widow lady that bought the church, and she wanted to keep it a vibrant, alive place. And so she started asking entertainers to come in to perform. And some of them were really good, people, good entertainers. But, as time goes on, it slowly shifted into more and more of a worldly atmosphere. But they also had the Grand Ole Opry come in, the radio station, and the Ryman Auditorium is where the Grand Ole Opry started. And so it was just, the history there was just so interesting to me. And as I walked through the auditorium, I just put my hand on the pew, and you can ask my husband, I just burst into tears and said, it's so sad to me, all the preaching that happened in this building, and now it's just filled with probably a lot of worldly entertainment that does not bring God one stitch of glory. But it was just a really touching moment, and I just sat down in the pew and I just cried. But I was just thankful of all the museums that we could have toured. We ended up touring that one. I really recommend, if you're in Nashville, to go to that one. It starts off with a really well produced video. It's kind of like a screen, a three-dimensional screen up front, and tells the history of the Ryman Auditorium, and it kind of puts into perspective how our world functions. We always end up resorting to just that sinful path, but we need to preach the gospel and share the love of Christ with others and tell them there's a better way. And so hopefully that fills you in on the history of the Ryman Auditorium.